Hello, ladies and gentlemen. So, I've got a lot to talk about and a lot to say because that was something else. So, let me give you a little bit of background history, at least with what I can say in regards to the 2018 Daytona 500 and some of what has happened over the last few years. So the last Daytona 500, I distinctly remember watching Flag to Flag, was back in 2014. At the time, didn't have a job, and I think that I got the day off the next day after the 500. I know that's going to be the case in terms of this year, as tomorrow is President's Day, so my brothers are off. But the last Flag to Flag Daytona 500 I saw was Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s final win in the 500 back in 2014. I've caught the ending of the 2015 one. I caught the last 20 laps or so of the 2016 one, I think. And I caught a decent chunk, probably like with the last 60 laps of last season's Daytona 500 in 2017. And this year I got to sit down and watch from beginning to end this year's Daytona 500. And even better than that, I also got to sit down and watch it with some friends, so that made me happy. But let's talk about the race. So, let's actually kind of talk about speed weeks too. So, the Camping World Truck Series, okay for the most part, a little meh, a little bit of an anticlimactic finish, but a good race for the most part. There were some trucks that got torn up, and there were some incidents that happened that were honestly pretty stupid, but it was an okay race all in all. The Xfinity race, good, really, really good finish. Good racing for the most part. It was just so stupid, though, how so many restart cautions happened. And this is the amazing thing about the Xfinity race, was the fact that technically, by the decimal point, that was a tie between Tyler Reddick and Elliott Sadler. The finish, the running at the finish in terms of distance between first and second place was 0.0004. So technically, Reddick only beat him by 4/10,000ths of a second. And generally, they only do the scoring by 1,000th of a second. So the fact that they even broke that is even more amazing. Now, when you look back at the replay footage, which I can say is a little bit skewed, certainly, they have a camera set up at the start and finish line, but its angle can be deceptive a little bit. Going across the line, Reddick did beat out Sadler. But I think if you were to adjust the camera angle some, and you had it like flat at the line, there's no bulging or anything else like that, that was a dead tie. And I honestly feel for Elliott Sadler. I feel bad for him that he did not win at the Daytona Xfinity event. That sucks. But congrats to Tyler Reddick. Johnny Sauter, by the way, won the truck race. I never did mention that. But I wasn't really big on the truck event, so there's that. To briefly talk about this, because I also caught a good chunk of speed weeks, I watched the duels too. I was very happy to see Ryan Blaney win, and I was actually pretty happy that Chase Elliott won. I thought both of them did really good, and they had strong cars. And even more so, Dale Wallace Jr., who took over the 43 after Eric Almirola got the boot, took it across the line, third place in the duel. And when I saw that, I was like, okay, that's pretty cool for one. And two, guy's got talent. The guy's definitely a good racer, and I think he could do great in the 43. Now let's talk about the big topic. Let us talk about the Daytona 500. Biggest race of NASCAR, biggest race of the season, 60th anniversary. Let's go into it. So, I have to say the racing overall was really good. Really good. Now, there is one thing that I disagree about with Speed Weeks and with NASCAR on, and that is the tandem drafting. To talk about this real quick, Elliott Sadler and Chase Elliott got a penalty in like the last 20 laps in the Xfinity race on Saturday because they locked bumpers and they were pushing each other down the back straightaway. Now, NASCAR's reasoning is they don't want tandem drafting, which I get. Personally, a lot of people said back in the day that the tandem drafting, the tandem racing, was the coolest thing they had ever seen, that they loved it. I personally was against it because you would take two cars and they would get into a tandem draft right at the last second, and they would launch themselves upwards of like 7 to 10 car lengths or so. They would get a huge steam of speed. They get this huge lead, and then it would just be a battle of, okay, who's going to pull out in time, and then if not going to pull out and someone's going to throw the block, well, who's going to wreck first and who's going to come across the line the winner. I hated that racing because you had just, it was dumb. You really only had to hook up with one person and just not have the risk of blowing your motor. And I would say, honestly, I know it sounds contradictory, but there are three elements, or two elements at least, in this current package for the Cup Series and the Xfinity Series that I do like. One, pack racing is back. You kind of have to get into the train and get into the draft and push one another. But there's even a bigger more element to this. Side drafting is key. Side drafting is so important, and it balances things out. You can be able to suck off the back end air of someone and get into their draft, and you can push forward with them in a big giant train. And if you think that you've got the momentum, you've got the good line, you've got the speed, where you can poke your nose to the outside and you can go ahead and get just enough air off the outside of them that you can slingshot by. That's cool. That's cool as hell. In addition, not only that, these cars were kind of hard to handle. A decent number of cars had the back end sway out on them and they would get loose. It actually took some challenge to driving the cars. Not only that, but the other crazy thing, at least in the Cup Series, I'm sure this was the case in the Trucks and Xfinity Series, the cars did not have a ride height restriction. These cars were as low to the ground as you could get them. And the benefit is that you have less air running across the bottom chassis, and you would have more air flowing over the body of the car. But the problem is if the tires aren't up to their required pressure, or up to the pressure that they need them to be really fast, your car is so close to bottoming out on the racetrack, whether it's in the front or the rear. If you didn't have it balanced just right, you're going to be scraping parts of the car against the track. This entire super speedway package, which I think we mainly saw in certain elements of last year and especially this year, brilliant. Love it. Because it has a good even ground of Maybe we don't have tandem drafting now because that's deemed illegal apparently, but you now have the side draft, and that can just be about as strong as the tandeming. So with all that being said, here's the race. Race from beginning to near the end was great. We did have a few accidents. I know Danica Patrick got knocked out of the race. Jimmy Johnson got knocked out of the race. Daniel Suarez and Chase Elliott took really bad hits to the outside wall. And that was kind of crazy. They're okay, but they drove well. A decent number of cars were really not unscathed by the end of the race. Ryan Blaney had his nose kind of split on the car. Some cars had their numbers worn down. Bumpers were cracked. Sheet metal was bent and beaten up. Everything. And there was also some good racing as well. I was sad to see this, but Kurt Busch was running back in second place, took a big swing, and both his move, a car behind Blaney bumping into Blaney, caused a rather large accident. Kurt Busch got knocked out of it. Brendan Gaughan got knocked out of it. A few other cars got knocked out of it. Blaney continued, and he got 7th today, which is good job on him. He's the points leader, I believe, this weekend, because apparently now the duels net you points, which is strange in my opinion. But yeah, good racing for the most part. The cars were unpredictable. They were a little twitchy. They fixed it more by race day, which was good. The teams figured out some stuff, but it still wasn't easy. Racing the cars was not easy, and a good chunk of cars still was slipping and sliding all over the course. So we had a great race, and then here's what I want to talk about. The finish. Finish of the Daytona 500. So, I'm just going to jump right to the point here to describe the ending of the race. White flag falls. Eric Almirola is leading. Austin Dillon is second place. Got a whole pack of cars coming up fast. Dale Wallace Jr. running really, really solid. He's in the top 5. They come down the back straightaway. Almirola pulls up to block. Succeeds. Moves back down a little bit. About 3/4 of the way down the back straightaway, Austin Dillon tries to peek his nose to the outside. Almirola stays steady from what I could tell, and Austin Dillon turned him down the back straightaway. Austin Dillon turns the 10 of Eric Almirola, and Almirola was really the only person who got involved in that incident. Bubba Wallace and Denny Hamlin, they're fighting it out. They still potentially have a shot to win somehow, if they can, as they go down the front straightaway. But no, Austin Dillon wins it. Bubba and Denny go banging door to door against each other across the stripe. Bubba beats Denny out by so little, and Denny puts him in the wall. Let's talk about some stuff. First off, I'm not a big fan of Austin Dillon, but I will state that, you know what? I have a little bit of respect for him in terms of him winning the Xfinity title so many years ago, back when it was nationwide. And despite the fact of what some people will say, considering he won a fuel mileage race at Charlotte for the 600, okay, fuel mileage races sometimes suck, but there's plenty of good drivers that have won fuel mileage races too. Some guys that are etched into NASCAR history. So I don't really hold that against him. But what he did to Almirola was just mean, nasty, nasty racing. I won't even call it racing. He flat out dumped him. He turned Almirola. Turned him right into the outside wall. And I want to say this before any of the big Dale Earnhardt fans get on my case about this. Listen to me when I say this right now. I was a Dale Earnhardt Jr. fan from 2003 through 2017. Watched him all my career. Not all my career. Watched him all my life. Good chunk of it at least. And I have so many things of Dale Earnhardt Jr. merchandise. Thing is I didn't really know anything about his dad. I heard of Dale Earnhardt, but I became a fan in 1999. And if you guys are going to jump on me and say, well, you never got to see racing brilliance, I was born at a later time. Simple as that. Can't help when you're born. So many Earnhardt fans, so many number 3 fans, so many Richard Childress fans are probably going to say, well, that's what Dale would have done. Dale Earnhardt would have turned anyone to get a win. Dale Earnhardt Austin Dillon did exactly what Dale Earnhardt would do any day of the week, and Dale Earnhardt is Dale Earnhardt, and he's my God. Austin Dillon is God for winning the Daytona 500. Hoo-ha, hooray, Austin Dillon. No, you're flat out wrong. For all the people that claim that Dale Earnhardt would have done that at Daytona, you're wrong. You're so goddamn wrong. First of all, the speeds at Daytona are about 203 miles per hour in the draft. The best a car can do down the straightaways on its own is probably about 188 to 194 in a solo run. That's about how fast they can go. All the times that Dale Earnhardt tried to win the Daytona 500, he never, ever, ever turned someone on the racetrack at a super speedway to win the race. And why? Because if you do that, it's way more dangerous for you and way more dangerous for the other drivers. And you don't believe me? You really don't? Listen to me when I say this. Davey Allison got major injuries to him in 1992, I believe, at Pocono. Pocono is technically, could be classified as a super speedway in terms of its length, because it's a 2-mile long racetrack, and you can get going really fast there. But Davey got injured. Rusty Wallace, with his big flip at Talladega, he could have gotten seriously injured. Daytona and Talladega are the fastest speedways, super speedways, on the NASCAR circuit, on the NASCAR schedule. And aerodynamics are key there. They're absolutely key. You go and you wreck someone, you're going to have aero damage. That's not going to help you win the race. And I have to say this as well. With all the people saying Dale Earnhardt was just trying to rattle everyone's cage, Dale Earnhardt was the best, Dale Earnhardt this, Dale Earnhardt that. You know what? I got to say this. I think it was kind of scummy sometimes how Dale Earnhardt would race people. Here's the thing. I can totally understand a little tiny bump to loosen someone up. You get up on someone's rear bumper, you give them a little nudge, you maybe push them a little bit harder, you try to get inside of their head, you try to make sure that they can go and maybe mess up their corner. Not enough that they spin out a wreck, because that's just going to bring out a yellow. But no, get into their head, get into their space, drive it a little bit deeper, drive it a little bit harder. And you make them mess up because they can't have the better line. You're driving in the line that you want to go into. That's fine. That's fine racing, because you don't hit someone or you don't intentionally wreck someone, and the driver that you are intimidating, they don't get a wrecked race car either. But when you look at Dale Earnhardt, and on the speedways, on the intermediate tracks, etc., saying that Dale would just turn someone in the wall, well, that's scummy racing. Let me tell you this right now. When it comes to racing, I try to be pretty damn respectful of people. I try to give people space. If they've got a better line than I do, I will go ahead and let them get by, because I know for a fact if I can follow right behind in their tire tracks for a certain number of laps, if I can get my mind back on balance, maybe I can get by them again. If you guys remember the NNSCRA event at Kansas that you saw like this past week, I drove some people really aggressively. You can even look in like NASCAR Heat 2, which I know that I'm fighting against AI drivers, but I'm driving it down below the white stripe, down in the front straightaway. I'm diving it hard into the corners. I'm not hitting people to wreck them. I'm trying to get by them. And legally down the front straightaway, that's fair game. You can go down below the white line. You can try and shove your nose, but you have to be prepared and ready to hit the entrance of the corner. And you also got to make sure you do not intersect with them right when you are about to merge back onto the racetrack to make the corner. For all the things that Dale Earnhardt did, some of his moves were stupid, brash, and dumb. You look at the Bristol incident between him and Terry Labonte. That wasn't rattling his cage. He absolutely wrecked him to win the race. And then the second time when that happened, thank God Terry managed to win it. You can do stuff like that on a short track. I don't like it on a short track. I think it makes for not productive racing. And the most frustrating part is what ends up happening, especially in local levels, because I've seen some of this stuff before. In the local levels or the smaller levels of racing, especially on short tracks, here's what happens. Driver number A has a beef with driver number B. Driver number A bumps, beats, bangs, puts into the wall driver number B. Driver number B goes out ready to have fisticuffs with driver number A. Eventually what you're going to have happen, whether it's that same race or the subsequent weeks when they go racing, you're going to have an utter stupid fight. A really stupid fight between two drivers. And what's going to happen is, in consequence because of that, you're going to have angry fans for either side, for either driver. So they're going to be fighting. Drivers are going to be fighting. Teams are going to be fighting. Words are going to be exchanged. And you know what you lose out on? You lose out on two things. Both drivers end up with crumpled, mangled race cars at the end of each week. So neither of them are winning races. Neither of them are hunting for a championship. Neither of them are really doing anything productive. And because of their feud, they're slowing up and potentially run the risk of wrecking to other drivers who have nothing to do with this. Nothing to do with it whatsoever. I don't like seeing stuff like that. And I think the more aggravating thing is this. The fact is that side drafting works. Almirola could have done something really stupid, like he could have tried to block the inside line. Oh, what does that do? That leaves the outside lane open. What does Austin Dillon have to do? He's got to get the push from behind, and he can use the side draft to slingshot around Almirola, and then you can pass him. Or if you are going to come across the line side by side, you can lean on each other's fenders a little bit. You can beat and bang across the line. You can have a good finish like you did in the Xfinity race on Saturday. And you know what? That would have been a great race, and that would have been a respectful race. Because who knows who could have won that? Who honestly knows who could have won that? Because Almirola could have beaten him to the line. Austin Dillon could have beaten him to the line. Hell, you could have Bubba Wallace try to make a move on the outside or in the middle or somewhere, and he could have beat him across the line, and he could have won. That's productive racing. That's good racing. That's good super speedway racing, especially. If you can outsmart your opponent, that's more interesting and more productive and puts on a greater show than flat out dumping someone down the back straightaway or dumping someone in the turn. Wrecks happen, I get that. You look at the Truck Series event from last season in 2017 at Daytona, that was a big cluster of insanity by the fact that a good chunk of trucks were torn up, destroyed, Crafton goes flying into the air. That's good racing. That happened though, but that wasn't the fault of one driver. That was just a storm of super speedway racing. But when you have the choice, when you have the utter choice of, I'm either going to hold my line and I'm going to work my way on the outside and work my way on the inside, and I'm going to see what I can do with my horsepower, or I'm just going to go ahead and turn down to the left or turn up to the right and take the other driver out, you lose more people and you get more people angry with the second option. And that's dumb. And NASCAR is not going to do anything because it's the 3, because it's Richard Childress Racing, because it's associated with the Earnhardt name. I'm an Earnhardt fan in regards to Dale Jr., but I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid that so many older fans or newer fans are taking on in terms of Dale Earnhardt being the best, or Dale Earnhardt was God, and Austin Dillon is the reincarnation of Dale Earnhardt, and that was a fair race, and that was a good race, and everything was great about that. I'm not drinking that stuff. That was stupid racing by a stupid driver. NASCAR is not going to do anything in regards to penalizing Austin Dillon. He's going to have the win. He's got the win. They've already given him the trophy. No penalties are going to come out of this. Nothing. And I find it interesting. I mean, it would have been interesting either way, but the fact of it being today was the 17th anniversary of Dale Earnhardt's passing, and this marked 20 years since the 3 was in victory lane at Daytona for the 500. I guarantee you, though, if it was someone else, if it was someone other than Austin Dillon, if it was someone other than being the 3 car, hell, if it was the 33, let's say, because the 31's run by Newman, 13, which is an associate team slightly, or at least gets parts and pieces from it, Ty Dillon drives a 13 for Jermaine. If you slapped a number 3 onto the door and made Austin Dillon the 33 instead of the 3, he probably would be booed at. He probably would be hissed at. He probably would have been hated, and he probably could have gotten a penalty too. But no. Because you erased that other 3 and you've just got 3 digits, 3 numbers, the big number 3 on the door, makes everything great, makes everything fine. Because it's the 3, no one really cares. That's just the Earnhardt legacy. That's the Childress legacy. That's good old-fashioned racing. Screw that mentality. Screw it, screw it, screw it. So, to wrap it up, at least my feelings in that topic, I am not pleased. I am really not pleased by the lack of sportsmanship and the lack of good racing at the finish there. There could have been such an amazing finish. And let me say this as well. Eric Almirola, with what he managed to do in the 10 today, running up near the front and keeping himself out of trouble. Austin Dillon in the 3. Bubba Wallace in the 43. Kurt Busch even. I know he won the Daytona 500 in 2017. With how they performed, especially the top 3. Hamlin is a 500 winner. These guys have long careers ahead of them. Specifically, I'm referring to the 3, the 10, and the 43. These guys have good long careers ahead of them. And with what they managed to show today, any one of them could be a Daytona 500 champion. Austin Dillon could very much well be a Daytona 500 champion next year if he didn't win it this year. Or if he just drafted his way around, he could have been the champion this year, and Eric Almirola would have lost fair and square to the 3, and he could try and fight next season for a Daytona 500 victory. If this year was to show anything, is that these guys have the talent to do so. But how you finish that race, how that acted out, how all that went, leaves me so disgusted. So absolutely disgusted. It makes me sick, and it makes me so upset. And the thing that I think bothers me more is so many classic traditional NASCAR fans are going to look at this and say that this is the greatest thing ever, that this is going to revitalize the sport, this is going to be what brings all the fans back, this was good, clean racing. No, it's not. No, it's not. Not at all. This is an interesting moment, but interesting for all the wrong reasons. Alright, let me talk a little bit about a brighter topic, at least, somewhat. I want to talk about Dale Wallace Jr., aka Bubba Wallace. What a show by that young man. I haven't been a super fan of Bubba Wallace. I've always kind of liked him a little bit. I just didn't know much about him. But my introduction really came from him to Bubba Wallace was really from Ryan Blaney. I grew to like Ryan Blaney, and I liked Blaney back when he was in the Truck Series somewhat, back when he used to race for BK Racing. I found out that he and Bubba were friends, and Bubba was interesting in terms of you got this cool guy who raced at one time for Kyle Busch Motorsports. He won the dirt race at Eldora. I think he won at Martinsville too. He's got a couple of wins. And I didn't like Bubba originally because he raced for Kyle Busch, but he's a good racer. He's a very good racer. And when I saw him racing in the Xfinity Series, I was like, okay, cool. He's in the Roush equipment. I don't think he's going to win a championship, but I think he's going to... Nope, didn't even get a chance to do that in terms of Roush cutting their funding and dumping Bubba out of the 6. And that made me upset. That was a team that was in championship contention. Possibly. Could have made it to the Final 4. And with some luck, they could have beaten the likes of William Byron or Elliott Sadler or a whole host of other guys. And he didn't even get a chance to really show himself. He got dropped from the 6 in the middle of the season as they were still in the top 10 in points. They had a shot. And it made me sad. It made me so sad to see that happen to Bubba Wallace. Then you have Eric Almirola get injured. And when I heard that Bubba was going to be taking over the 43 for these few races, I was like, you know what? That's kind of cool. That's pretty damn cool. He went out and he won the Michigan truck race as well in the 99, which was like a 1 or 2 race deal. That wasn't even the team that he was supposed to be signed for and racing for at the beginning of the season. He didn't have a ride anymore, though, so he took what work he could do. he went out and won it. He won a big event. And then with the 43 deal, it's like, okay, I looked at it and I was like, all right, I think this is kind of interesting. He could do well. He could do well. I'm not expecting wins, but he could do better. Because at the time, Almirola really wasn't doing anything with the 43. And you know what? Bubba outperformed him. He showed even stronger determination and stronger dedication to doing well. Dude was solid. He wasn't in the best equipment because it was Ford, and that was kind of the scraps of what the Roush Yates engine program was, but there was something that clicked. There was absolutely something that clicked there. And Bubba got put in the 43. Almirola came back, which was like, I kind of looked at it and was like, I don't know why you're putting Almirola back in the 43. He's not bad, but look at what you did with Bubba over these last 4 to 6 weeks. He got you like top 15s, top 20s. Dude was dehydrated after the first race at Pocono. Had a massive amount of issues at Pocono. And he managed to rally back and get himself a top 15 or top 20 finish. Cool. And what equipment he had, that's a good day for them. And when Almirola came back, it was like, okay, cool. Sucks to be Bubba. I feel bad for Bubba. I don't know why you're putting Almirola back in. Look at what this dude did for you. Keep him in mind, I guess. And then the big announcement. Now, initially, what I wanted to see happen was Blaney goes over to the 12 and Bubba takes over the 21. And my reason being for that is Bubba already had an association with Ford in the Xfinity program, and Bubba would actually get a real good shot at performing well in a Ford with good money, good equipment, and a Penske affiliation. But he gets tabbed by the 43. Well, leading up to the season, before we found out about the manufacturer swap, I thought, okay, he's probably going to do okay. Probably not going to do amazing in that Ford, though. If it's going to be Almirola's equipment, then he'll do better, but I don't see him doing great. They switch over to Chevy. Now this changes everything up. Now they actually have a pretty good chance. Because really, when it comes to Ford, the only big teams that really are strong and dominate and have a good shot at winning in the Ford camp is really, on a consistent basis, Penske or Stewart-Haas Racing, and at the super speedways, it's Penske, Stewart-Haas Racing, and throw in a Roush. Throw in a Roush or two. That was really about it. Bubba impressed today. Dude was up in the top 15, good chunk of the day, good running, even in some minor incidents, he was up in the top 10. Dude pulled off a second place finish. At the last moment, at the last chance, he beating and banging across the line, Denny Hamlin, edged him out by such a small margin, he gets second place. His first Daytona 500, dude gets a second place finish. That's impressive. That's as impressive as all can be. It is so rare that you ever get to see a rookie. Let me know it. Bubba's a rookie in Cup, and he finished second. He was driving like a vet out there today. He drove smart. He kept his car clean. He got into small incidents, but it wasn't enough to tear up the car. He did great. He did so great. And lo and behold, something has to spoil that for me, because Hamlin, I don't know whether out of anger or whether just because seems to me that whenever a driver goes to Gibbs, they kind of get this sense of entitlement and get a pole stuck up their ass. But Hamlin apparently put Bubba in the wall because after they crossed the start and finish line, after the cameras on Fox are panning over towards the three and they're like, oh my God, Austin Dillon won the race. You see a smoking 43 and you see an 11 car digging into the bodywork of the 43. And if Denny did something in regards to being pissy at Bubba or was just like, you know what? I didn't really like finishing third. I really wanted to win second, or you know what? I really wanted to win this race. I'm just going to go ahead and show Bubba Wallace how I really feel and tear up his race car. That's stupid. That's so stupid, Hamlin. I only sort of like you because of the work that you do for the CF Foundation, but honestly, with most of the Gibbs drivers, once you get a guy like, especially Kyle Busch, once you get Hamlin in there, Logano really didn't do anything, so he really never got to take on that attitude. And Daniel Suarez, I think, is fine on his own. I don't think he really acts this way, but it seems like once you get your butt into a Joe Gibbs ride, unless you're Bobby Labonte or Tony Stewart, the modern day Joe Gibbs group, you turn into a cocky jerk and you turn into a little pissy baby whenever you don't win or whenever something goes slightly wrong. You get such a superiority complex about you, and it's sickening. It is so stupid. You look at Kyle Busch cry and bitch and moan about all the crap that goes wrong, about how he says that, well, if this person races me this way, it's not fair, but if I race them this way, then that's just clean racing. Nah, you got your head kind of wrapped up in Stupidville there. So Denny, solid race for you. Great job for Bubba Wallace, but if you intentionally wrecked him, if you really tried to really show a lot of displeasure, you not only knocked the 43's body out of line and such, you probably did some body damage to it, and so you also tore up your own race car, so I hope you're proud about this. Also, to point out one other thing, I understand that the Daytona 500 is a massive race, but let me say something on my own behalf. If I was racing the Daytona 500 and I had a shot to win it for the very first time, God knows I'm going to try to do everything I can to win it. If I've won the Daytona 500 before, knowing that back at home I've got my big giant trophy, I've got the check from the race, probably already put in my bank and everything like that. I got my Daytona 500 winning ring on my finger, or back at the motorhome, or back at home in my trophy case. Considering I've got all these prizes already, I'm going to push hard to win it, but I'm not going to be stupid about it either. If someone else goes out and they can manage to actually beat me across the line because they had a better run or a better car or just better strategy, yeah, I'll be a little bit disappointed. But I still have my previous wins. I still have my Daytona 500 trophy, still got that ring, still got that check, still got all those interviews I did for all the different television things. I still got to do all these promotional advertisements for the sport in terms of promoting the sport for a solid year. I got to do all that, and I also got a whole bunch of endorsement money, and I got a massive sponsor payout too for this. If I win the 500 once, I'm happy. If I win it twice, I'm even more happy. But if someone else beats me to the line or just is racing me better and they end up winning it and I've already got my trophy, my check, my ring, everything back at home, I'm not going to wreck the dude. Unless someone hits me from behind, I'm not going to intentionally try to wreck someone because I'm upset that they got across the line before me. And the other thing is this. You have an entire season ahead of you. Daytona is important, but if we learned anything from Tony Stewart's 2002 season, you can completely screw up the Daytona 500, and you can still go on to win a championship. You look at Kyle Busch, he didn't even race like a third of the season almost, and he goes out and he wins the championship. I'm not a fan of that championship by any means, because I think it goes against everything that NASCAR once was, but you can do it. You technically can do it. So if Denny did that intentionally, I'm even more disappointed about that. Like, I really, really am. But I have to say this. Good job to Bubba. Good job on Bubba. Kept his nose clean. Did everything he could to do well. And he did such amazing things today. Great job for Ryan Blaney. I knew once he got into the Penske equipment that he probably was going to go and do some amazing stuff with it. Dude got a 7th place finish. Led up until about the last 10 laps, roughly. Last 7 laps or so. Really was in great shot to win it. And you know what? Considering it's Penske, I could see Ryan Blaney winning some really big races this season. I don't see him necessarily winning the championship yet. I think that's going to be a few years later on down the line. Man, Ryan, you got some really sweet equipment under your butt. And as being the 3rd Penske car, you've actually got the funding and the attention of Penske and Penske Group and everything like that to help progress you forward. You got a solid seat under your butt, and you are definitely going to make some magic. Also, one last shout out. Good race up until the wreck, but he certainly proved a lot of people that he was going to do well. Alex Bowman. I have to be honest, I kind of knew that the 88 was kind of the chicken dump of the Hendrick Motorsports field. But I will say also that in terms of Daytona success, 88's pretty good. Bowman kept his nose pretty clean, didn't really get into any wrecks, was smart, easygoing most of the race, did lead a good handful of laps, and he was in contention all race long. He just got into one of the final accidents and it was over. But honestly, Bowman's got a good career ahead of him. I think he could do really well in the 88. It's definitely better than Dale Jr. did in his final years. Hopefully we'll see something akin to something like a Dale Earnhardt Jr. of 2003 or 2004. Like a really, really strong year for Bowman. I would say 2014 and 2015, which were good years for Dale, but that was more the end of his career. I think Bowman can show some consistency. I don't see him winning the championship either in his first full-time year, in a good ride. But I could see him pulling off top 5s, top 3s, top 2s, some wins. I just don't think he's ready to win a championship yet. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the Daytona 500, Speed Weeks, everything else like that. I like the drivers and I think they did a great job. And the drivers who acted stupid, as in Austin Dillon and Denny Hamlin, screw them. They'll get what's coming to them. And with that being said, thank you all for watching. If you have any comments down below, let me know, because maybe you have a different opinion from me, and maybe you see it in a light that Austin Dillon is not wrong. And if you can debate me, if you're willing to debate me on this, as long as you give me clear information and are willing to logically talk this out and do so with respect, I will respond. I will honestly respond in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Have a great rest of your day. I'm probably going to do another live stream here in a little bit for some NASCAR Heat 2. But that's it for this video. Thanks for watching.